Welcome to Connect with Success with Dr. Lynette Scotese-Wojtila, where we help connect you with knowledge. Our mission is to lead you to a new and exciting way of understanding, responding to, and helping all those with autism. We hope to expand your thinking about how to best serve these amazing people and to support you in your daily struggles and celebrations.
Welcome, everyone, to the latest episode of Connect with Success, a podcast built around the success approach and the person who coined it, Dr. Lynette Scotese-Wojtila. We have a very special guest with us today who is here to give another witness of just how the success approach has impacted their life with their son. We're so looking forward to taking this journey with you. And of course, we have the wonderful Dr. Lynette here with us today, who's going to help us digest some of the success approach in all these given situations. And Dr. Lynette, what's our concept going to be for this episode?
Today, we are going to talk about relief. And when I think of the concept of relief, I think of it as a remedy for, prolonged exposure to pain or suffering or oppression. One of the words that comes up a lot when we think about helping individuals with special needs. Not unlike a migraine, prolongs suffering and makes people uneasy, and it's challenging to endure. Something like medication can make the migraine go away, and therein is the relief.
Joining us today is Samantha Haydock, and she's got her son Pauly, who is 9 years old, and she's going to tell us a little bit about herself.
Hi, so my name's Samantha, most call me Sam. I was previously a therapeutic behavioral specialist / case manager. I have Pauly, who is 9 years old, who attends ITC. Then we also have Miss Bella, his little sister, who is 2.5 going on 25, who also is Pauly's boss, but has also, as we talk later on, has also brought out a lot of skills in Pauly. But Pauly is also, they were meant for each other. Like, I feel like Pauly is here for her, and Isabella's definitely here for him. But yeah, that's us. And now I currently am back working in the pharmacy during this lovely pandemic.
It was interesting how that works out, right? Because it's the same dynamic at our house. So we've got Maddie, and it's like Jared was meant to keep Maddie going. And then we have Finn, and then we have Ollie, who was meant to keep Finn going.
Yeah.
It's kind of fun the way that works out.
Yeah. God's got a great plan.
That's right.
We just got to follow it.
So tell us a little bit more about Pauly. What's his diagnosis? How does it work for you?
So Pauly it was a little complicated in the beginning. So at 9 months, Pauly got a severe cold, and it caused his adenoids and tonsils to swell up and expand and never come back down. So we noticed he had trouble breathing when he was sleeping, nose constantly running. I was going to the doctors with him, hey, he's not breathing when he's sleeping. We're waking up. Me and his dad did not sleep for 2.5 years. His primary did amazing trying to, get us answers. We went to the ENT, was fighting for surgeries to get him removed. Finally, at 2.5 years old, they removed it. Prior to that, we were in Help Me Grow, so we noticed he wasn't meeting the milestones he was supposed to be meeting. So he was in speech, then we got into speech at Cleveland Clinic. I asked for a referral for OT because he was technically, they said, not behind in walking, but just grasping and other gross motor skills and things like that, he was behind on. They didn't want to officially diagnose him with anything more at that time until after the surgery. 2.5, got his surgery, was completely different. Would finally sleep peacefully, it was relief. And they said basically from what they seen, he had the largest adenoids they've removed from a child. From what I was told, they're floating around Case Western to be used to teach. They asked if they could keep them. I'm yeah, to be shown in classes and stuff. So they removed them, and they said basically from how large they were, the amount of pressure that he had from them, it was probably like he was hearing underwater. So from age 0 to then, that is the time your brain is like a sponge and you are picking up words, sounds. So his was like hearing underwater. So also with the sleep apnea, it affects the front part of your brain. So that had time to recover. So they, at that time, also didn't want to diagnose. They want to see what happened with that. So we did multiple sleep studies. He was a trooper through all of it. He did well with them. That did recover. His sleep apnea technically went away. We continued speech and OT. He then started saying words and sounds, but again, wasn't at the milestones he was supposed to be at. So then we met with his neurologist, and he agreed speech delay, developmental delay. He agreed autism, but we didn't like label him at that point because he was more on the ADHD, and that's what we were focusing on. The district going into preschool was more on getting that label, the autism label, which they tried labeling Pauly before we even seen a neurologist, which I thought was weird, because I'm like, I didn't know like school districts could label a child, like diagnose officially, and they can't. But so went back to the neurologist, and he explained to me why the district was pushing the label, and he said, it's up to you. You know, some people don't like labels, and I'm not big on labels. I believe everyone's who they are, and I feel like if you have a label, like, for what? Like, do you have to identify by that, or you know, it's up to you. Eventually, we did get the autism diagnosis because it would help with the scholarship when we would come to ITC. But prior to that, the district labeled him as educational autism. But officially, he was diagnosed with ADHD, anxiety, sensory processing disorder, and autism is what's on there now. But he's doing great since coming to ITC.
That's awesome. Yes.
Prior, I wasn't pushing labels because, like I said, I am not big on just slapping a label on it and moving it forward. Like his neurologist had said at the time too, nothing was changing. The label would not change his therapy, would not change him. It was up to me. And he said sometimes, like when you put a label on him, it can, you know, for future prevent things from, you know, him doing things. And he called Pauly a special case because of his sleep apnea and things previously. He said, if it's not autism, at that, he was younger at this time, he said, and it's more from, say he wasn't getting enough oxygen to the brain, or say it was, you know, just a delay, and as he gets older and hormones kick in or whatever the case may be, and this changes, then we have to unlabel him, as you would say, and then prove, okay, well, this was a misdiagnose. But then as Pauly got older, and I was like, you know, at home, I am seeing more of this diagnosis, then I'm fine with it. And he said, as long as like it was me and I wasn't being pushed by the district still at this point, I'm like, no, like they knew to back off at this point.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, so one of the things you mentioned in terms of the value of a diagnosis, here in Ohio, one of the values to having a name or a diagnosis for a child, at least educationally within the Ohio Department of Education system, is that it is turnkey for the Ohio Department of Education scholarships. And there's different kinds of scholarships. So those of you who are listening outside of the country, for sure know that some places in the United States, and Ohio is one of them, there is a scholarship program where parents can understand that their child has a special need, get that established through an evaluation team report, and therefore an IEP, or an individualized education plan, and take that education plan and have it implemented by people outside of their local district who are what they call special scholarship providers for the John Peterson scholarships. And there are two. The first, that John Peterson, who's a wonderful state rep who 17 years ago, I think it is, created the Autism Scholarship because he himself, as a state rep, had a daughter with autism, and he wanted parents to have options. And so when the scholarship came around, it was first the Autism Scholarship, and then later there was one that he established called the John Peterson Special Needs Scholarship. So all it really means is that families can take their child out of their local district, and forego their access to FAPE, their free and appropriate education, and choose instead of district resources to take them to a private provider of the Autism Scholarship or the John Peterson Scholarship. And at that point, the people working at those agencies render the IEP. And they still work with the district occasionally and specifically to doing new IEPs and such. But the family and the agency tend to work together there. Or it doesn't have to be an agency, but it could be a special provider.
Right.
Not just an agency, but a speech therapist in one area and a PT in another area. As long as they're individual providers, the families can go through them. So I just want to make that clear because not everybody's in Ohio.
Right. And if you're in another state listening, your local Department of Education and see what is available in your particular area, if anything.
Right.
And if not, advocate in your state for something to
Ohio is
unlock.
a great model for that. It has its flaws, but it is helping lots and lots of kids to at least access something along the lines of specialized services.
Absolutely. So, Sam, tell us what you guys like to do for fun.
When Pauly, during the week, he comes to the center. When he comes home, I let Pauly do what Pauly does. He comes to the center, he gets his sensory diet, he does his school. When he comes home, that's his relief. That is his, I did my daily routine. I kind of coming home is just like, it's his free time, I should say. He also looks forward to coming to school as well, but whether it's his tablet, going outside, whatever. So for fun, we are outside people during the summer. My parents live a couple doors down, so they have a huge pool. Pauly is a fish. Literally, since he was, I think, 3 months old, we had him in the pool. At 2 years old, we took him to Mexico. We put that puddle jumper on him. And I was just like, something to help support me in the water. No. He literally jumped in that pool, and it was a huge resort pool. And he swam around the entire pool in that thing for a week. Wow. I literally chased, he was known in that resort, everyone knew him. And I was exhausted because that is what we did for a week. So he is a water child now, but he's a Pisces also, so it makes sense. He loves being outside. We like being outside. In the wintertime, we try to find different events. He went to the circus a couple times, absolutely loved that. Disney on Ice. He loves playing in the snow. Pauly loves getting his hands in dirt, snow, whatever the case may be. I let Pauly explore as much as he can. I recently watched this video, and someone had said, let your kid live dangerously, safely. And I'm like, that makes sense. Pauly is literally my wild child to the point where sometimes he does give me a heart attack, but I let him do that to a sense. I let him push those boundaries outside, safely, in the sense where, he's exploring different textures or whatever the case may be. But he makes me nervous because I feel like when he's older, he's going to own, a skydiving company. I literally think this is going to happen, and Mom's going to have a heart attack. But he went to the air show for the first time this year, in person. Him and his dad went. It was a thing that they had been planning. And they stayed for about an hour, but they had to leave because Pauly thought that it was his turn to skydive after he watched the skydivers. And it
wasn't his turn?
No. And he was really upset. His dad said he kept trying to get to them, to get their parachute. It's my turn. And Eric's like, Pauly, no, you can't do this. And trust and believe, if you gave Pauly a parachute and he could go out there and skydive, that boy would have no fear and he would do it.
Yeah.
So when he took turns 16, I told his dad he can take him and start the process of like tandem jumping and things like that. Because I really think Pauly will enjoy that. Like,
a fun goal. Yeah.
yeah, but his body, I think his sensory system responds well to that.
That's right.
Like, because he does well. Like, when he gets that activity and when he gets that sensory, he is calm afterwards when he comes home.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there's no mistake or there's no accident there, as we learned in our sensory integration episode, and one of the first ones we recorded. Yeah. It's good content.
Sensory is always one of my favorite things to talk about. And just so you know, there's a place, I think it's in Hiram, that does like these low key skydiving adventures. Our friend Dawn Kendrick had talked about it with us. She actually did a whole thing. We'll have to get the name of it for you, but it's nice. It's an open field, so it's like it's considered safe because it's nice and open. So we'll get that information for you.
Yeah. Put it in the show notes. We can put in our show notes and share with people who have that adventurous kind of spirit in their own child.
That's not me. I'll watch.
Yeah.
We'll come out and do a locale. We'll do a locale taping and give you the play-by-play.
Right.
I am not jumping from the plane.
It's okay. We've other people who will.
I will. I'll be the one that defies gravity.
I would probably do it for Pauly. And once I do it that first time, I'd probably be okay. But I know his dad would volunteer before me, so I'll let them do a father-son thing.
Yes.
And what a great model as we get ready to jump into the message, kind of a good metaphor, right? Making sure the parachute is packed before we jump.
Right. Love it. Love it.
Oh, he knows, because off our swing set, he has like a little parachute we bought him. So he practices jumping off that, and he makes sure it's on his back.
Oh, gosh.
Yeah.
What a visual. So, Sam, starting with our line of questions now, is there anything you learned about your child since being at ITC that no one else knew or explained to you?
Yeah, that he actually enjoys coming to school now. I will say in the beginning he loved preschool. Like when he first started, I would say school. He enjoyed it. He had amazing preschool teachers. It was an older generation who cared. But then right before we started looking and found ITC, I knew it was time to find something else, because you would ask Pauly how your day was and it would be bad. How was school? Bad.
Oh.
You're 5, coming out saying it's bad. And you could see it on his face. It wasn't just like he was just saying things. I also figured, like, since him being at ITC, this is where we learned about, like, the whole sensory diet. Like, we heard of it in therapy when we had him in outside therapy, but it wasn't, like, fully explained. They would just say, oh, sensory diet, sensory diet. And when I first heard it, I'm like, sensory diet? Like, is this something he's supposed to eat?
Right.
Like,
yes,
I'm like, because I can barely get him to eat. Like, whatever he's willing to eat, I let him eat. So if you want him to eat sensory foods, it's not going to happen. But they didn't explain that with his sensory diet, it was going to be certain activities or things that need to be done throughout the day for his sensory system.
Exactly. That's
and
right.
that we found out when we came to ITC, which I think overall has changed Pauly's entire life.
Yeah.
Like jumping, where a lot of people would yell at kids for doing, Pauly needs that. That is part of his sensory diet. He has a trampoline in his bedroom. He has a swing that is on a playground at a park in our doorway of his bedroom. Like, that is part of his sensory diet. So that is something we learned about Pauly because of ITC. Another thing I learned too is Pauly allows certain things that happen at ITC and not at home, such as mom is not allowed to brush Pauly till this day. We've tried over and over again. If mom brings the brush out, no mom, no brushing. But he loves it here.
Yeah.
So that even as Pauly gets older, like, there are things like, and I respect that. Like, whoever brushes him here, they know what they're doing better than mom. They do it a lot more than mom. But also, like, maybe that's like, he's like separating it. Like, I do that at school. Like, leave me alone, mom. I'm home now. but he can't explain that to me. But he can explain no brushing, Mom. So that sensory diet, brushing is part of it, but to him, that is here. It's at ITC. So at home, you don't want brushing done, fine. But he does have me roll his back with one of those rollers.
Yeah.
He likes Mom to do pressure. And since coming to ITC, he's been here a few years now, but he can communicate his needs.
Right.
Before, and that's one of the reasons I wanted the switch, is he couldn't communicate his needs to me. And that scared me. And when we talk about relief, when he came to ITC, I had relief as soon as I walked in the door and knew that he would be coming here. I felt secure and safe, because even if at that point he still couldn't communicate, I knew that it was safe. But now he can communicate his needs, and all that came about being here at ITC. But that's the main thing. Well, all of it at ITC is communication, the separation of some things, Mom, I want here at ITC, some things I want at home, respecting those boundaries of his, understanding like his needs and wants, and the fact that he loves school. Like, he enjoys coming. He has his routine. When he leaves school, you ask Pauly, how was school? Good. How was your day? Good. He has not told me he had a bad day. So that alone makes a huge difference for me and his dad. So.
And so, Lynette, how would you start to build that schema for Pauly then to have some of those skills transferred from ITC over the course of his stay here?
Yeah, one of the things I actually was thinking about is what a beautiful and advanced application of that transdisciplinary spirit, where the OTs and the speech therapists and the parents and whoever else is on the team, they're all working together. So in Sam's witness of Pauly preferring certain things at home and certain things at the center and maybe not mixing them up, she's still found a way, and Pauly's still found a way of doing much of, actually almost all of the sensory diet, except for that deep pressure touch brushing that she referred to as the brushing. And that's a beautiful thing. You don't have to do 100% of it. Doing some of it and enough of it is exactly right. So I actually wouldn't work to change that. I think if there's a skill that he's, let's say, reading here and not at home, which is not the case, or using a fork here and not at home, which is not the case. You know, those things we can look at expanding their schema, is what they call that, what we call that, so that they have the understanding that a fork is a fork. It goes with food. Food's going to be at ITC and at home. So one of the things Mom did share is this whole idea of, or what you didn't share, you said the word brushing, but I thought you were going to say toothbrushing, because we worked on that here, and that wasn't generalized. So we had a little technique where, we worked on it, we desensitized him, we got it going here at the center. We do a lot of ADLs, activities, daily living with the kids, and Pauly was up for toothbrushing, and so was Mom. But he kind of was falling into that, I'm not going to do it at home because it's an ITC thing or a school thing. And so we talked about it, identified it, and we created a special program, a reminder program for Pauly, where we would say to him when we did his teeth, this is number 1. We brush teeth number 1. This is first. Number 2 will be home with Mom. And we said that in the moment at 9:30 or 10, whenever his first ADL cell was. And then when he left, I put a sign on the door, and I told my staff, because Mom and I agreed, that the last thing they were going to tell him before he opened that door to leave to go home with his nanny was number 2, toothbrushing will happen at home with Mom. So it's like you set the stage early in the day, then you remind him in writing at the door as he leaves, so he could then at least hear the words and hopefully have it rendered then and be like, yep, I was warned. This is going to happen. It's time number 2. Okay, Mom, let's do the brushing of the teeth. Nice. So that's the kind of thing we would do, Rich, to expand it. Yes,
and that's
good
that
question.
continuity of care, like
that's
to
right.
make sure that they are able to transfer that skill outside of the realm of ITC.
Yeah, and that's unique to each family. Some families are very comfortable with all of it and want more of it. Some want to do just part of it. Some are uncomfortable doing the techniques because they're bodily techniques. It feels strange to squeeze their kid or roll them in a mat or doing things like that. And then there's some parents who are like, I'm not going to roll them in a mat, but my husband's really good at piggyback. So let's do that jumping around and roughhousing. It's like, great, that'll be his dose at home.
Yeah. So, Sam, what advice do you have for moms or dads of older kids that is different from the advice that you would give moms to younger kids?
The first thing I would say is don't ever stop advocating. Always always, always advocate for your child. Unfortunately, the world that we live in was not built, or as of right now, is not made for our children. And that's why I always preach acceptance and awareness. A lot of people that talk to me, I don't look at or speak on autism as so much as a negative thing. I look at as autism is, say, for an example, a personality. I wouldn't, for an example. And there are symptoms that come with autism, and I look at it as we need to treat those symptoms. And if we treat those symptoms, it's okay. A lot of people, I feel like, look at the autism as a negative thing, and it's not. And especially with the older adults, a lot of information on autism wasn't out.
Right.
So I feel like they have a disadvantage, especially because they didn't get the early intervention. There are still programs, there are still therapies available. Unfortunately, after 21, a lot of places aren't paying insurance. School, times out after 21 because, you should be done with school by 21 because we say so. Like, I don't know why 21 is the age, but, according to data or whatever they say, at 21 you should be done. So my thing is don't stop advocating. Autism is not a bad thing to me, but it is part of my child. It's not who my child is, but it will be with my child and carry through with him. But if we can help eliminate those symptoms, and you could do the same thing with your adult child, it can help them deal with this world we live in and maneuver it. And you could do that same as an adult. So that is what I've told a couple of people who have adult children with autism who, unfortunately, they didn't get the speech. They didn't get the OT. They didn't get the specialized schooling. Their child was thrown into a system that put them in a special ed program that had a special ed teacher, but they weren't specialized in autism. They didn't really know anything about autism, but they did the best they could.
Right.
It was no one's fault. Like, they just didn't have, the training or the knowledge about it. But there's still programs out there that can help. The other thing is no matter who it is, we all continue to learn. Me, you, your child, your mother. You can teach whoever's around your child, whether they're 15 or 25, different things, like the success approach. Not everyone may be able to take the course right now, but what you learned, you could say, when you're trying to get Pauly to do this, try to say it this way to him,
Right.
because this is the way we're doing it, and this is the way the center does it. You could still do that as an adult. And a lot of the things like I learned in that course, when I was working as a therapeutic behavioral specialist, I took over and realized I was doing in my interventions with my adult clients, especially like the ready phase.
Yes.
And one of the big things is meeting a person where they're at.
Right.
And especially like the clientele I worked with was chronic homeless. They were chronically homeless and severe mentally ill. You have to meet them where they're at. Yeah. And to get them to do anything, they have to be ready. And one of the things in the model that is my favorite thing that is part of the model is the ready phase. Even as an adult, you can still work on getting that person ready.
That's right.
And I did the same thing with my clients without realizing. So that would be the same advice that I have for adults, is if you have a child with an adult who has autism or an older child, take the class. You can use it with them as too. There's not like an age gap. Take learning or take education, do research. You can still help them at this age.
And if you can't make that class in person, remember that if you go to the successapproach.org/online-course, you can take the online course for the Success Approach. It's available to you. And the beautiful part of that is that it's a self-paced module style course that you can take to learn everything about the Success Approach.
Mm-hmm. So, Sam, in that witness of you taking the concepts of readiness, which were one of the early episodes on our podcast, and using them with your clients, it reminds me of these last couple moms that we've worked with. You guys all have a background in social work, and that's putting yourself in that position to help people access services and help, and even the direct counseling and support that you're trained to offer people, to give you a new trick at your veteran status as a person involved with mental health. It's life-giving to me that you're able to apply it. And just like in Successful Josh episode with Stacy and Successful Nathan episode with Darla, you moms who are social workers have such wonderful skill sets. So to be able to add to that with your population and to see gains because of something you learned through your family's need for service, through Pauly's need for service, it's sort of a exponentially wonderful opportunity to, be the village. It takes a village for everybody who needs special needs or mental health help. And you've found a new tool as a fellow villager. That's great to hear.
Yeah. I currently I stepped away from that position, but now that I'm back in the pharmacy, I also see myself using it with the clientele that comes in. Because from being in that field and coming back to pharmacy, I carried those skills over. So I feel like any skills you gain, you're going to carry over into your next journey.
That's right.
And with this class that I took with the model that you learned through Lynette, you're not just going to use it with your child. You will literally use it with everyone. You will use it with your husband.
That keeps coming up.
It's coming up.
That keeps coming up.
And it works. And you get more done and, things that you need done around the house. It teaches you to get them ready and prepare them for things.
Yeah.
I'm very grateful I'm on the inside of this, so I know what strategies to use. Yeah.
Let me just say quickly that while that is what the Success Approach does in the online class that now supports people to know this is it helps you understand yourself and others, which naturally allows for better communication. That's what it's all about.
And to trick your husband in it.
Shh. That's the extra part of the course you took.
Right. I'm here to tell all husbands I'm here for you.
I don't know. It might trick your wife, too. It depends.
So, Sam, you just kind of talked a bit about advocacy, starting with awareness and education. So either we can build on that or maybe just reiterate it, but what's the best way for a family to advocate for their child's needs?
I'm just very passionate about autism and just people getting the resources and getting the help they need, because I'm sorry, I don't think people should have to fight this hard.
Right.
And the world we live in, like I said, was built for, and I hate using this word, the typical situations, the typical person, and it's unfair, but the main thing I would say is research. Do all your research. Talk to other parents. Get their experiences. Get their views. See what they're saying. If it's not ITC, look at other schools that may be more in depth with autism, or if it's not autism, like a special needs program that may fit your child. The more knowledge you have is the more power you have when advocating for your child. Another thing that will help you in the end is know the laws of your state, especially when it comes to advocating for your child, when it comes to needing therapy, your district, especially if you're in a public district, what services they have to provide, because not everyone has, unfortunately, access to go outside of their district. I know, some areas, there's one school for 100 miles, and not every parent has the support to travel to another school. Like, we have amazing support, thank God, for my parents and Eric's mom and our babysitter and things like that, because we're able to send Pauly to ITC with their support. But I know every parent doesn't have that. So if you are going to stay within a district, make sure you know what laws and what they have to provide for your child with their IEP. There are different parent advocating groups on like Facebook. Join them. There are parents that will come to your IEP meetings with you. Make sure your child's getting all the services that they need. A lot of people don't know that if you're in the district or whatever, you can bring outside resources in to the school if your school isn't providing what your child needs. And letting them know that you're there for your kid, and that you want to be involved and you need to be involved, and make sure that they're involving you. And at the end of the day, go to bed knowing that you tried your best. And even though on our hardest days, we'll get through it. And then call Lynette.
Oh, Jesus. I was just going to say mic drop on that. Like, we're going to get through it. That's
Right.
exactly the notion. We're going to get through it.
We will.
Yeah.
What are some of the greatest challenges the Success approach has helped your child overcome? I know you talked about a couple of things earlier, but like if we can just kind of hone in on the mainstays that have just given you your child back.
The main thing, I think, is getting Pauly ready, which back again to the ready phase. Getting Pauly ready for anything is key. And what the ready phase taught me was getting Pauly ready for something was the biggest challenge. Well, no, not getting Pauly ready, getting Pauly to do something, because Pauly is stubborn like his father. More like his mom. Well, maybe a combo. But he will do something when he is ready. If he is not ready, Pauly will not do it. He is like a bull. He will not move. No. So I think coming to ITC, learning the model, and then them also having Lynette's model and, teaching us to get Pauly to that ready phase has became a big factor in his life because he has accomplished a lot more. So some things may take him a few weeks to get ready. For example, with his haircuts before. We initially haircuts were not the best thing for Pauly. He hated them. But my mom would do them at the house, and she did great with him. But it got to a point where I said, okay, Pauly, you're ready to go to a salon or a barber. So the girl who does my hair, I was like, I think you will be best. She's very calm. She worked with kids with special needs in the past.
Beautiful.
Carrie, his OT here, printed out pictures of like the inside of the place. We talked at home. We prepared him for weeks. You're going for a haircut this day. So every day it was talked about. We got him ready. So when that time came, he did great. To this day, he does great. Janelle is his hairstylist. Is his friend. He will say, Janelle is my friend. Pauly 2 years ago, if someone was cutting his hair, that is not his friend. That was his enemy. Like, you would ask Pauly, do you want a haircut? No way, no. And he would flip out. But I think preparing him for that is what got him that.
That's right.
Now, sometimes it takes him minutes to get ready, but it's all about getting him to that ready phase. Also, if he's not in that ready phase and you get him to do something, is he really taking it in? Is he absorbing whatever it is that you need him to do and actually learning from it? So, like, again, I know I talked about the ready phase a lot, but I think that is the biggest challenge that has helped us overcome with Pauly, is because when we get him to that point now, he's actually accomplishing more in the long run. And it's a permanent accomplishment.
Yes, that's the word.
Yep.
Good.
Because the haircuts, he continues to go.
Yes.
Like with his sister, we prepared him. She was coming. And at school, they talked about a baby sister coming, and they read stories.
Yep.
And they had a baby doll here at home. We had a baby doll, and he would help feed her. And then when she came, and he came up to the hospital, he was so happy. Like, he jumped right in the bed with me and wanted to grab her. Pauly, prior to that, he would have been like, okay, it's a baby, who cares? But you seen the emotion and the excitement in him. And like, now there's some days he probably wants to send her back to the hospital, but he actually is really good with her. Like, Pauly is very gentle with her. Pauly will go in the other room. He shares his stuff. So all that entire time got him ready for, I think, moments like this.
You keep saying that you're saying readiness so much, but we really can't emphasize it enough, Sam. And here's why. It is probably the thing most overlooked because it's the most easy to misunderstand. Most of us who live life day to day without the challenges that individuals on the spectrum face can become ready and are ready more naturally, more often, and for longer times. So it's accessible to us. Our nervous system and our thinking centers of our brain are accessible to us. So we never want to underestimate the importance of readiness for them because we take it for granted. And so when you stop to say that somebody isn't ready and you baby step like we did with some of the people you talked about and some of the resources, we strategically engineered him to understand, predict, and therefore be ready for that expectation to get those shears out and have a haircut, or to have a new baby come into his life, or to have that toothbrush enter his mouth at home versus just here. So it's about doing what's almost unusual or subconscious for us and really honoring that readiness. So it's a really good topic to review a lot.
I think I also benefit from it a lot too, and I think that's why I like it so much, because I also have ADHD. So I understand Pauly more on that level, and without knowing it, I probably incorporated a lot into my life, like planning and, getting myself ready. Like, I have my own routine that I do every morning, and Pauly's involved in that routine. And, we come to school, drop off, I go to work, and get ourselves ready for, all that every day. So that's probably also why, I'm like, this is my favorite part, because it made my life easier.
Again, that exponential benefit.
Yeah. So not only does it help with husbands, it helps with yourself.
Well, and I tell teachers all the time, too, it helps with your class. If you have a strategy that helps them all focus, and then you can kind of look around and see if they're ready to receive, it makes that reception of the information that much easier.
That's right. Yeah. So, Sam, you've shared a lot about your experience on the receiving end of the class and some of your favorite theories and ideas, and we know that readiness phase and that readiness idea is critical. But what of the success approach methods or theories do you wish your child's preschool, kindergarten, or elementary teachers would have known at the time they were serving your child?
Once again, the ready phase. Mm-hmm. Because I think this is the thing. I think when kids are in school, and this is for all kids, not just kids with autism, not kids with just disabilities, just all kids in general, they compare every child to either the, standardized testing or, well, they're supposed to be here, they're supposed to be there, where that's not how reality is. And each kid needs to be ready to go on to the next level of learning. And I think if they got each child to a ready phase, and more children in general would do better. And granted, there's thousands of children, so they can't, sit down with every kid and are you ready and, prepare. But if they took the approach, and especially with the children that are in the classes that may have 3 or 6 children, and they did that and focused on that from preschool and up, and prepared them for these classes that they're in, I feel like in the long term, the ready phase would help them throughout their educational career, I should say. Also, when learning the success model, I never heard the word your child will not do this or cannot do this. It's when your child does this, when we get to this point, that is something that I never really heard. Well, no, I take that back. I heard it, but the last year before we came to ITC, I heard a lot of, well, we don't know if Pauly will do this. Pauly can't do this. Pauly won't do this. And as a mom, and my dad raised me, don't use the word can't, especially with yourself. And when you're saying my child can't, my child won't, you're not psychic, first of all, so you don't know what he's going to do in the future.
Right.
But it just bothers me.
Yeah.
So you're already setting him up for failure in my mind. And, you know, so what are you doing when I'm not here if you're willingly saying he can't or will not do this in the future? And it was over reading. And I had said, Pauly's been reading probably since he was 3, let me tell you, because YouTube lists on the left-hand side all of his shows, and they are not in order, and he goes to the exact one he wants to. That child of mine can read. No one could tell me different. Like, he is incredibly smart. He does not bring it out if he's not ready.
Right.
Hello, ready phase. But also if he is not comfortable. He wasn't comfortable.
Yeah.
So true.
He didn't want to be there. So he's not ready and he's not comfortable. And also, like, children feel that energy. And if it's a negative, Pauly literally would bang his head. Like, I know sometimes he would still do it here and there throughout the years, but this was constant to the point where they asked me, like, do you think we should get him a helmet? No, I think it's time I take him elsewhere. He would cry. You know, he would be upset. Like, I was constantly worried. But that's all that energy. And I think things like this model should be incorporated into at least special education programs, or similar models I think should be, you know, incorporated into special ed programs because they need them. Like,
Right.
they need to be, it can't just be, here's your basic education for special ed.
Right. I think it provides so many tools that aren't naturally provided in the toolkit of the average district. I was just on the phone with a mom from California, actually a grandma, who has custody of their 5-year-old, and these grandparents are advocating the best they can, but it actually, kind of like when I first met you and Pauly, they're saying things like, well, the district keeps calling me and saying, come get him. Like, he can't be here. This isn't working. You know, he's not cooperating. He's blank. And they would put an adjective in there, disruptive or belligerent or a true adjective. And that I understand, and I hope everyone out there listening can picture their own initial understanding where maybe it was before they really understood the why of why kids perform. Because even in our early understanding of kids, we too put a label on them. They're aloof, or one of the words I hate the most, or they are despondent, or whatever it is. They're really not anything. They're coping and they're in their experience. What we have to ask is, what is that experience and why? So in working with these folks in California, I'm like, you know, I'm in Ohio, you're in California. What I'd love to do is help you find a neurodevelopmental model that is going to help them ask the question and answer the question, why is he appearing to be blank? And once we understand that, we have more opportunity. So calling a parent, like I know they did with you, Sam, understandably, because they didn't know what to do either, and said, come get your kid. You know, how can you make a living? How can you get yourself, talk about your own routine and getting yourself okay? That's really hard to be interrupted as an adult when you think your kid's okay in the hands of capable people who are trying to help them, only to find out they don't feel so capable, so they're asking you to come and get them. And that's a cry for help from the districts or the agencies where these kids are and really don't have all the tools that they might if they understood the success approach. And that's what we're trying to do through this podcast and the class, is provide those tools.
Well, you know, in this immediate society that we have today, right? You know, we can get anything at the YouTube. We can get them Google. We get fast food culture. You know, this whole idea of getting things and getting it fast, that we forget that it's not about the what that we can get our hands on, but asking that why.
That's
and
right.
If we just stopped for a second and took that pause,
Yeah.
take a pause and think about why things happen, we probably would lessen about 85% of the problems that we have.
Right. And I encourage that to happen fast because to Sam's point, Pauly, who was not only unready, was also not comfortable.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a hard place for a kid to be who's already stressed by their existence and the situation of sensory processing or information processing challenges. And that's hard for them to be uncomfortable.
Absolutely. Well, Sam, thank you so much for your testimony and witness to the success approach today as it relates to your family and to Pauly, and really to share that with all of our listeners in the several countries that we're being heard in now, and hoping to give a little light and relief to what they might be going through. So thank you for sharing your story with us today.
Thank you guys for having me. I enjoyed it.
So today, listeners, I would like to challenge you all to think about relief. Concretely identify things that bring you relief or lessen that strain. And when you have some identified, carve out time to use them. Carve out time to access them. So for Sam, she put herself into knowledge and research and awareness. That brought her a sense of relief. Of course, the obvious relief. When your kid gets what he needs, you feel that visceral, as a mom, thank God I've got some relief. But even if that doesn't come, you have to find things for yourself. So research or get some respite if that's what you need, or get into a hobby, or sometimes even volunteering. Sometimes seeing something bigger than yourself brings you a sense of distracted relief that you're not just in this alone or struggling. You're not the only person struggling. So find those things, identify them, and carve out time to do them.
Our episode with Sam about successful Pauly started out with a beautiful story about the adventurous Pauly, and that he was always willing to want to go skydiving. And immediately I saw the metaphor of how before we can jump from this plane that we call autism, we have ITC as a resource in our proverbial parachute to ensure safety and care, and a team that is there for you in all facets of care. She also shared with us some beautiful tips about knowing your state or your country's resources or lack thereof for your loved one with autism. Being an advocate is strongly encouraged as part of the Success Approach model as a way to build your just right team, as Lynette likes to say. Lynette, what do you think that our listeners should take away?
Well, one of the things that really stuck with me that Sam was talking about is that we all, and our kids included, can continue to learn. And so we are sometimes the learner. We have to be open to continuing to learn new things, but we can also be the teacher and educate others, whether that's a parent or a teacher. It's a continuum of learning and teaching. So we got to really be good at both of those things and stay open to doing both of those things. And then another thing that came out in Sam's witness that she's actually using professionally is working hard to meet not just Pauly, but working hard to meet her clients where they're at. And I know her well enough to know it also means meeting her husband where he's at, and meeting Isabella, her 2-year-old, where she's at. And on a day that I'm crazy or running around, meeting me where I'm at. Like, you have to understand everybody's readiness, that readiness phase. We all have it. Sometimes we don't when we're not ready. Recognizing that, meeting each other where we're at when we're at a state of readiness that needs to be optimized, and then proceeding with whatever it is that we need to make contact about.
We would love for you to connect with us. Leave us feedback, a story, or a question you're thinking about through our SpeakPipe page. You can leave us audio recording and just ask away. Who knows, you may even be featured on an episode. You can reach us at www.speakpipe.com/connectwithsuccess. That's www.speakpipe.com/connectwithsuccess, and use your phone or computer to leave us a voice recording. We'll put the link in the show notes as well, but remember that's www.speakpipe.com/connectwithsuccess.
We hope that you learned something today to help you on your journey with autism. We'll share more on our next Connect with Success podcast. Until then, expect success.
The Success Approach is a registered service mark protected under intellectual property law. Unless otherwise specified, all music, audiovisual, and proprietary content shared in this podcast is property of AWEtism Productions, LLC, and its sister agency, Integrations Treatment Center. The use of this content is unlawful without the expressed written consent of aforementioned agency. For more information about the Success Approach, please go to our website at www.thesuccessapproach.org.